Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. Tonight we have Cari Bartholomew back from District 13 State School Board. And, you know, we actually talked right before the convention, right? And you came out victorious.
Right.
Right? This was the Utah County
Correct.
Convention, right?
Yes.
And, you know, I listened to what you were talking about, and yeah, wow. And now I guess you didn't outright win
Correct.
at convention, right?
Right. We split the vote.
There were two of you that survived.
Right.
Randy Booth, the incumbent, actually was eliminated at the convention, right? And you split the vote. What you're 50 something? What was your?
Yeah, I 52 to 48,
Okay.
and I did
So
come out
pretty
ahead.
close.
Yes, very close, very close. In fact, after Randy was eliminated, I thought that there wouldn't be. I thought it was over. I expected all of those votes to go to Allison.
And you thought she would win.
I expected her to win at that point. So the first time I won by 15 points above both of them. But then the second time when he was eliminated, I thought all of those votes. And for me, I was really surrendered.
You got part of his vote, so
I did.
Yeah.
Which
Which you didn't expect.
at all. So I believe that I won because of heart. Because Allison and I were very much aligned. Allison's very polished, very gracious and dignified. And I think I'm both of those things too, but I'm very passionate about the subjects.
Right.
And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if the elephant in the room, what I look like, helped, but I don't think that was it. I think what it was that people truly felt that they were cared about.
Well, and that's kind of been your major theme,
Right.
You know, about loving our kids.
Right.
You know, I like, you know, one of the things I like to say is that, and I actually go after the Democrats, which didn't have
Right.
anything to do with any of this, but I sometimes say, look, these policies have gone so far left that they've left our kids behind.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, your focus seems to be on academic excellence,
Right.
success for students.
Right.
So what messaging do you think really resonated with people at the convention?
I think that, at least from my experience for the last 3 years that I've been here, constituents don't feel heard or seen. They are often gaslit. They feel that they're not valued, right?
Explain what that means to people.
Okay.
When you say
Sure.
you're gaslight. Most people know what that is, but just so everybody is familiar with exactly what you mean by that.
So there's a movie, it's a black and white movie, I think from the 1930s, where a man marries a woman and he's really a thief, and he's doing all of these things but pretending that none of it's happening and it's just in their head. And that happens a lot when a parent has a concern and maybe they'll complain about this issue or that issue, and they'll say, oh, that was a one-time occurrence. It's not in the curriculum. Don't worry about it. It's a one-time occurrence. And so I think that I know people felt heard. I had one person who came up to me, and I'm sure he'd be okay with me telling the story. I've two specific stories, but one of them was a young man who was born with a disability where he had very short arms. And when I spoke to his father, and you're supposed to have these conversations for 5 minutes, but some of them would be like 40 minutes long, right? And they just wanted to be heard. Right. And so I listened to them. But it's not just listening. It's also that, yes, I can say things that other people don't feel comfortable saying. But on top of that, I have solutions. So part of my campaign changing from just informing people is sunshine and solutions. I want to be that happy wayer, the person who comes into the room and wants to believe the best and see the best, but also wants to push forward with the things that are best practices, whether that be literature, whether that be reading standards or math standards, how we can support our teachers in the classrooms, how we can get parents involved. All of those things I think resonated because they're common sense solutions.
Right.
And I think that that relates to a lot more people than a lot of progressive practices that honestly seem like you wouldn't adopt them unless you wanted to demoralize people.
That's what I like about your approach to things, because rather than just being the person in the back and said, this is evil, this is evil, this is evil, we have to get rid of them, right?
Right.
You've actually thought through those things and said, how do we move forward?
Right.
Right.
I've spent hours.
How do we carve a proper path forward?
Yes.
And move us beyond,
right,
beyond
pointing fingers, right?
the political craziness.
Right.
Right.
My concern is, how do we establish dignity for our students? And
so explain what you mean by that.
Sure. One of the things that I believe is that if a child cannot read, then a child is going to be a poor learner. They won't be able to learn. And I know that the gap, and I know this personally because of the way that I grew up, if I didn't have a strong foundation in reading before I even got into school, then I wouldn't have been able to, one thing, escape a lot of the trauma. So, but that was intentionally putting the best things into my head. And I think that that's one way that we instill dignity, is we need to stop saying that every single child needs to look at a mirror and see themselves, but instead they can look out at windows and they can see the world around them, and they can learn to respect other people. They can learn to be really contributing members of society. When they do all of those things, they build dignity. When they have merit in their achievement, when they can say, I didn't think I could do this. I worked for a really strong charter school, really strong reading. They teach handwriting, cursive in kindergarten. And when some of the kids would come out of kindergarten in some schools and come to our school, they would sit and cry those first few weeks because it was overwhelming. They didn't know what they were doing. Other kids could get through it. And you watched them as just these little tiny accomplishments, right? Tiny accomplishments, but they built up into something. And you'd see those kids stand up so proud because they could write a cursive H. Right. And that's building dignity. When we teach our children that they are victims, that they can't do, that we need to make accommodations or make them, as one school board policy said, as comfortable as possible, then I think we're doing a great disservice. And that's where you have to think about the term, are we being truly kind or are we being nice? And what is true kindness? Because sometimes we say yes to policies that I would call crazy. We say yes to those kind of things because we want to feel good about ourselves. But the real kindness is looking at our children and saying, I'm going to give you this task, and it's going to feel really, really hard. But once you achieve it, you're going to be able to look in the mirror and say, I did this. And I just think it's common sense.
Yeah, very good. We're going to take a break and we'll come back.
Okay. Regardless of the narrative, most of us don't care about your skin or your gender or your culture, except to find it interesting. Most of us care whether or not a person is a good human being. Teaching our children to hate each other in the name of social justice is still teaching our children to hate, and it's wrong. Our students deserve the legacy that was so hard fought for. They don't need to march in the streets with their fists up in the air because it's already been done for them. What they do need is a culture that fosters dignity, a classroom that teaches every child that they're equal, and a basic moral principle that gratitude is always better than grievance. I'm Cari Bartholomew. I'm running for state school board in position 13, and I hope I can win your
Welcome
vote.
back to PoliticIt. Again, we've got Cari Bartholomew, and you District 13 state school board.
Yes.
Right? So really great having you in here. So I want to talk a little bit about the caucus system and the convention that you went through. There's a lot of chatter about how this doesn't align with the general public, and but when I look at candidates like you, right, and you grew up in the foster system, right? You don't you're not heavily funded, right? You're not. It's not like you're pulling, hundreds of thousands out of the bank to self-finance your campaign, and less well known than other people, right? You're not the incumbent, right? And school board districts are huge. State school board districts, bigger than Senate districts, right?
Yes.
You've got a lot more constituents than I do. Right. So tell me how someone like you can even run for a seat like this.
Because of the caucus system. Because it comes down to heart. It comes down to message. It comes down to meeting with people and spending hours and hours of talking to people. And I'll tell you, quite frankly, my amount of money that I was willing to spend before convention was $1,000. That was it. So, because that's what I had.
And that was a lot of money.
That was a lot of money. That was like, and just trying to get past, you have to get your flyers. You have to have some signs ready to go as soon as you're done. Just even gas, right? So all of those different things would add up. But in the caucus system, everybody's represented. And so when I look out at my neighborhoods and I see that there are a lot of working class people, and I believe the number is 52%. 52% of Utahns do not have college degrees. They're working class families working hard just to provide for their families. And there's no shame in that. And I think that one of the things that we have that's been really shocking is there is elitism. There are wonderful people who are wealthy and generous and just kind, and you wouldn't even know that they do have all that funding. But then there's people who really treat you like you are beneath them. And I think that the caucus system allows the people who have been treated like they're beneath, who've been demoralized, who've just been shut down and made to feel irrelevant, it gives them a voice. And we need that voice, because if we get rid of the caucus system, then it is, as my 15-year-old, and he's now 16, but as my 16-year-old says, it's pay to play. And it's people making decisions for the 52% of us. They're making those decisions without any of our interest in mind. I'm watching these crazy apartment complexes, 800 units being built. And that's depreciating these already modest homes. So the caucus system allows all of us. It allows citizens to come in and to say, hey, we want a voice. This is what we think. These are the people who we believe will best represent us. I think it's terrible to say that because certain people behaved a certain way that to blanket us all. That's the kind of stuff I can't stand. Collectivism and just immediately running to the insult without even having the conversation.
So what did you think? I know you went through the county convention.
Yes.
Utah County.
Yes.
But I remember you were at the state convention.
I was,
too.
yes.
So what was your impression there? I can think of one
one event.
Yeah, one event.
Yes.
What was your impression?
I thought it was sad that we would so quickly, like I said, turn on everyone and paint the whole thing. It almost felt like it was staged to me to paint the whole thing a certain way, because it's not the way. One of the things that I saw was there was the most blatant white supremacy at the caucus. And I talked to so many people. In fact, I brought a young woman with me who's Brazilian, and I have a young man who is a Chinese defector. And so I talked to so many people all the way across. And one of the things I was doing work for Path Forward. And so I would pass out this flyer and I would say Utah has a squad and we need to change the narrative. We need to change the narrative and lift up the voices of people who don't hate you, who don't always look for the worst in people, and who really see you as our brothers and sisters. And that doesn't make me a token. That makes me honest, because that's the way most of us feel. And that's how I felt about the caucus system. Like, yes, you would see somebody that you have some rough feelings towards, maybe somebody who has let you down. For me, you just walk past. I'm not a person who wants to get in and get aggressive and those kind of things. And I honestly didn't see that. I think you could tell that who people cheered on as a nominee. I tried not to cheer on anyone because you can lose votes, right? So I just tried to remain as neutral as possible and listen to people talk, really feel out who they are, see if what they said, because I was also a delegate. And so that's hours of going and sitting in uncomfortable chairs and listening because you want what's best for your community. And we shouldn't be shamed for wanting what's best for our communities.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt, when the audience really was being grouped all into, this ultra right wing, fanatical. Those actually hurt my feelings. I thought, these people got here before 7:00 in the morning,
and they're here
and stayed past midnight.
Right.
And you say, and they actually tried.
Yeah.
To vet the candidates.
Right.
And to make good decisions based on the party platform.
So we have this thing, and it's called a repressive tolerance, and that is where only one side is amplified, always. So anything good or anything that can be propagandized to look good is magnified, and anything that is not on the right side is diminished, erased. And so the fact that we had many, many good things happening, the fact that there were people who were sitting and singing songs from some LDS musical, I can't even remember what it is, but those things aren't highlighted. The fact that I saw many minority voices, people that I was like, I don't know you, when I wanted to go and connect with them, none of that's magnified. It seemed to me that maybe a narrative was set before, there was a plan already before. And I think that plan's very dangerous. So, yeah.
So I just kind of wanted your perspective on that. I think you're in a unique position to offer, kind of a narrative of, how do people succeed? But let's get back to your campaign.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know one of the things that you push really hard is this idea that we need to focus on academic excellence.
Yes.
So why don't you talk about that just briefly?
Sure. Anybody who grows up poor and who gets out of it recognizes that academics are a huge part of that, or at least the other skills that you get in school, whether those are trade schools, whether that there's even your civic engagement. It all needs to be at the highest level. That is the best opportunity for truly equal outcomes. It's so especially
education is an equalizer, isn't it?
It is absolutely an equalizer. And the thing is that so many people, we're going to have an event at the end on the 28th. And I have specifically chosen people mostly who've come to this country looking for a better life for their children. And I want them to have that discussion.
Talk about that event.
Sure.
We'll put up a poster for it, right?
Sure,
so
okay.
People will know where to come. But talk about it just a little.
Yeah, it's called Proud to be an American. And what it is people, again, who've come from other countries. I'll be sharing my story. People who want the best in education for their children. The best in education means that we're reading books that inspire, not books. I can't remember if this happened before or after, but one story that a parent recently told me was there was a book and it said they came and they took away our shoes. They took away our moccasins and they put us in black shoes. They came and they took away our traditions and they put us in their schools. But it didn't say they. It said white people came and they took away our moccasins. White people, white people, white people. And this is for fourth graders. And generally, fourth graders don't care about race. Generally, they just like who's cool and, or who they think is cool. And so that's what I mean by excellence. And it has to be intentional when we say white people instead of saying Mr. George and Mr. Wilson came and they did this, because that way the child can conceptualize it.
Right.
So
and they focus on
yes
the issue at hand.
Yes,
right?
And then the other part is reading. This is huge. We've got kids who can't read, who are graduating without being able to read. So,
and that's one thing that's one thing I really liked about Senator Milner's bill on moving back to the science of reading.
Good.
I sit on the board for the School of Future at Utah State, and they actually took 3 schools and implemented this fully. One of them was a Title I school. Okay, so that was, the bill's been a few years ago, right? And so what they did is they started at that time, and then, now these kids are in 2nd grade, right?
Sure.
So they're taking these comprehensive exams on, their reading, their progress towards reading. What was really cool, I thought, they went in and they taught kids, they taught the teachers about the science of reading and taught them basically how to teach reading. And they ended up 100% of those kids were on level.
That's awesome.
Right. And
right.
One was a Title I school.
Right.
And I know you know quite a bit about
right.
you actually taught reading at a
yes.
charter school, right?
Yes.
Early childhood reading, right?
Right. And so my kids started out, I got the remedial kids because I was the newest educator. And so I got the remedial kids, and by Christmas they could read The Little Princess. So yes, we were stumbling through it, but right. they could read that. And that was, again, that was sometimes the most progressive ideas are not the most beneficial. There's a reporter who has went through and realized, when we teach kids just sight reading, when we teach them to look at a picture and to guess what they're reading, that we are harming these kids. We have to give them a foundation at the very beginning. It starts with phonics. It starts with decoding. So we have to give them these basics that when they have these, because if you cannot read, you cannot learn.
Right. Yeah, we have to learn to read, and then we read to learn, right?
Exactly. And you if you don't have a strong foundation, one thing is that if you can read, then the whole world is open to you. Coming as somebody who comes from a trauma background, being able to open up a book and to escape into that wonderful, enriching book probably had a huge impact in the person that I am today. And I think that is something, when I hear kids say, I don't like to read, and some people say, they haven't found the right book or whatever else. But I feel like that's foundation that we should be giving kids, because kids can read before they get into kindergarten.
Right.
And we should be giving them that foundation. We should read with them. We should listen to audiobooks instead of, always on the phone. What can we do to better their outcomes? And that's my big thing, is how can we better their outcomes? Also, when you have kids who have that pride in the fact that they can accomplish this thing, when they have pride, they tend to be more respectful. So I think another huge issue that's in our schools is that our teachers aren't as supported as I would like them to be. I think that when the kids feel that there are low expectations for them, a child will give you what you expect. And so if our teachers are taught to come into that room and just expect excellence, those kids will give it to them.
Right. Very good. Hey, we're out of time. Sure. But what I want you to do is make a pitch.
All right.
Just look at the camera and make a pitch. Talk to the constituents and tell them why they need to vote for Cari.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Cari Bartholomew. I'm running for District 13. I think that we need a fresh, new perspective while the board makes their decisions based on a lot of things that they feel that they have insight on and have studied on. I've actually lived, whether that be coming from poverty, or whether that be coming from the foster system, or of course that voice that is, the first Black woman on the school board, quite frankly. But don't vote for me just based on the color of my skin. Please do the work. Realize that I'm very, very informed. I am truly compassionate. I don't need to be trained in compassion because I genuinely care and want the best for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Cari Bartholomew, thank you very much.
Thanks.
So nice to have you.
Thanks.
We'll see you guys next week.